Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 271 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where we're content to just lie here tonight and break our fast tomorrow.
That's right. There is no need to trouble yourself, Eowyn. Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Don Marshall, the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy, and I am here with the man of the West who walked in this land ere many of you were born to grace it, Alan Sisto.
These jokes just keep writing themselves, Don. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Folks, it's a rough night in Dunharrow for Eowyn as Aragorn sticks to his plan in the third part of The Passing of the Grey Company, the second chapter in The Return of the King.
As we have spent the better part of the last two episodes on horseback with Merry calling himself some baggage, it seems only fitting that we now go to a different part of Rohan, because we've basically been kind of stagnant on a horse for the last few episodes, haven't we?
Yeah, I would say we have.
Yeah. All right, so some of you are hearing this show for the first time, and to you, we bid a very warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading, talking, and, as you heard before, often joking our way through Middle-earth a few pages at a time.
We take a deep dive into the lore, we explore how the story came to be, we talk about our favorite themes, and a lot more.
But in a kind of light and fun way, like friends chatting at a pub, and we're very glad that you've joined us.
And I'm sure you're going to be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time for me to have a chat with my co-host as we learn a little bit more about him and what he's doing to utilize new media to reach Tolkien fans. So Don, I've known you since we met in London for the first time back in May of this year. But I realize now that I've never asked you a question that we ask everybody who comes on the Prancing Pony Podcast. And co-hosts are no exception. When and how did you first discover Tolkien's works? What was your experience like, and what keeps you coming back?
I keep coming back because of the ADHD I realized I had and the hyperfixation that Tolkien is for me in real life. But I actually have a fairly unique experience with Tolkien that I think a lot of other people haven't had. My mom actually read the Lord of the Rings books and was initially going to try and get me to read The Hobbit or all of that stuff to begin with. But she read them and was like, I think you'll really like them, because I had read, Chronicles of Narnia, Deltora Quest, Redwall, all of the sort of young adult or child fantasy at the time. And she was reading the books and thought I would really, really like it. So every morning at the breakfast table, she would recount to me in a quick 5-minute fashion what had happened when she read the chapter the previous evening. So she would literally go a chapter at a time. And I do confess she did skip some of the more boring parts. Like, I didn't know Tom Bombadil existed until well after, and I had read the books myself. When there was a break in the story, it was like, oh, okay, my mom is just sort of explaining this to me in a kind of person-to-person storytelling way. So I didn't start with the movies and I didn't start with the books. I started with this storytelling version.
That's cool.
That my mom gave to me. And then, of course, after a few months, my mom said, hey, by the way, they're going to make a movie out of it. And I just went, what? And my my sister was too young at the time, so I got to, while she was at dance class every Monday, I was brought home and was like, all right, we're going to watch the first half, and then we're going to pause, then we got to go pick her up, and then we'll come back next week when we can watch part 2. So my first experience for The Lord of the Rings was watching part 1 of the extended edition, and the end of it is, right, so where are we going? And then the journey stopped. And I'm like, no, we need to keep going. Like, no, we need to go pick up your sister. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
She can walk.
Yeah. And then I was, oh God, I don't know if I've ever told this publicly. I found out the night of, I think I was like 12 or 13. My mom went to go to the opening night at our local theater of Return of the King. And because of how violent the films were, she would close your eyes when the Bilbo stuff comes on or when the Nazgul are out. And, I'm like 9 or 10 at that point when I'm watching the movies the first time. Right. So she wanted to see it first to make sure it was okay with me. But I was such a Tolkien fan at the time that I found out that she was going with some friends. And I was so mad at her that night. I just remember waking up the next morning being like, I can't believe you went without me. She made it up to me, though. She took my best friend at the time and I was lucky enough to be able to see The Return of the King in theaters when it was coming out. And
nice.
It was one of those moments where I'm just like sitting there, Annie Lennox playing in the background, and just like, what can you see? And there's like a little tear rolling down my eye. And it's a 13-year-old, like, he's gone. Frodo's in. I'm just like, not sobbing, but like, you know, and that's the way that 13-year-old boys like in the early 2000s didn't.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah. One of those. So that was my first experience with Tolkien. And then I never really stopped absorbing it. I read the books shortly thereafter and The Hobbit. And I didn't really get into the deep stuff until I was in college. And then I tried to read the Silmarillion and failed spectacularly, as most people do their first time around. Yeah. But it was such a challenge that I kept coming back and I never stopped.
Man, definitely hear you on that. I love that your first experience was basically having the story told to you.
Yeah.
In a different form. I love that. That's neat.
I'm very fortunate in that it was different than just seeing the books or just seeing the movies. I have this thing that is so unique to so many people.
That is really cool. Well, Don, going back to when we first met in May, a number of Tolkien content creators were there in London, including a number of you who are active on TikTok. Now, tell our listeners, keeping in mind that there are going to be a lot of them who aren't on TikTok, maybe who don't really understand that platform. Tell them about the unique nature of that platform and how you're using it in its own sort of unique way to reach Tolkien fans.
TikTok is such a unique platform, and I think there is such a potential for it to be the next version of YouTube. And I say that having been a very active member on the YouTube community back in like 2010, 2011. Friends of mine would start channels and just post videos. But YouTube back then was all about remix culture. You could do something called video responses. You could take a video that somebody else had posted and post your own video, and it would show up underneath that video saying, hey, this person replied with their own video. And TikTok is capturing that kind of remix culture in the same way with things that are called duets and stitches. So for those that are new to TikTok, it's basically like YouTube. You go on your phone, you watch a video, and the thing that makes it's so interesting is that you can utilize other people's videos to create your own video. You can take a small portion and literally stitch that video with your own. So take the first 5 seconds of someone's video or the last 5 seconds of someone's video and you play that first and then say, by the way, I've got something else to add. Or you can literally be talking while people are also talking with their video and you're side by side. It's called a duet. And it is that way that I have sort of utilized TikTok as again, I didn't give myself this nickname, but I'm quite fond of it, the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, Don.
No, it doesn't. But you know what?
I love
People know.
Absolutely.
So the way that TikTok has sort of been this amazing tool for me and so many other Tolkien related creators is 9 times out of 10, my videos are stitches where I take someone who asks a Lord of the Rings question. I provide the answer. So a 5-second question and a minute-long answer. Just to give you an example, I had a video go somewhat viral not too long ago where the woman asked, why are the orcs so easy to kill in Lord of the Rings, right? Because you can mow 5 down, no problem if you're a warrior. And I basically said, hey, by the way, that's intentional, right? Peter Jackson made sure not to put armor on the backs of the orcs to insinuate that if they retreated, they would be shot in the back with arrows. So they're always rushing forward. They're also not battle trained.
And now I'm picturing orc commissars like in the Imperial Guard in 40K, you know, for the Emperor.
For those of you listening on the podcast, I'm literally holding up a Space Marine
with a chain sword and a bolter. I love it.
Did you play Warhammer?
Yeah, sir. We are going to have a nice long chat. You really are the younger version of me.
Oh my God. The similarities never cease. Good Lord. That's so funny. Oh my God. All right. Well, we'll have a whole nother episode, you and me, about Warhammer as an aside.
Maybe we'll do a live stream of me breaking out my old Black Templars army, and you can play whoever you want.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I've only very recently just started, but I am obsessed with both Age of Sigmar and 40K. So we will be, I'm a tree person. I'm a big, I control the Ent army. I'm also a huge fan of the Halo video game series. So Space Marines is just the next step.
I like that.
For those that are maybe unaware, and Alan, you may not know this either, I also attempted to try and be the obscure Halo facts guy because I've read about 22 of the 36 books that exist in the Halo universe.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a problem, but it's fun. It's a fun.
No, I was going to say that's awesome. I mean, that's even more obscure.
It is.
In terms of the number of people who know the things,
Fun fact, they're mostly child soldiers in the Halo universe. But anyway, I digress. It's not a great look. Anyway, I digress. We back to Lord of the Rings. That is why I use TikTok and sort of what makes it unique, and the ability to sort of collaborate with people that I don't even know. That's how I got my start. Yeah. A buddy of mine by the name of Heston Horwin, who was actually in New York at the viewing. I don't know if you met him, but
I don't think I did. I was only in New York for all of 20 hours thanks to the crazy travel situation. Yeah.
Thanks, Cleveland. You were stuck in Cleveland, I think, longer.
Thanks, Newark. I mean, Cleveland just got to be the beneficiary of Newark's, complete disaster. Yeah.
Well, what is Newark's loss is Cleveland's gain, I guess.
Thankfully, the river wasn't on fire, and I was only there for 4.5 hours.
It happened one time, Alan, one time. But no, my buddy Heston Horwin is actually the reason I got started. I stitched one of his videos because he said he was making a joke about Gandalf being 8,000 years old. And I'm like, excuse me, he's 2019.
That's right. That's right. Get that right, man.
So anyway, that's how I got my start, and that's why I love TikTok.
That is great, Don. I'm telling you, it is something we've talked about off air, but I will say that it is something that I've been considering, and I'm hoping that when the manuscript is done,
I want you to know right now, the second you need help with that, I will be right there trying to make you go viral every single day. In fact,
appreciate it, man.
We'll create a TikTok moment right now. We're going to create something called a podcast snackable. So what people do is they post just little quips of 15-second jokes of their podcast. Now, of course, we are two straight white men with microphones, and really on TikTok, that's a big no-no on TikTok.
I was wondering.
There's so many of us, and sure, we talk about Lord of the Rings, but that Warhammer thing might be a moment. Anything where you and Shawn disagree, anytime you say spabimmy, anytime you bring up the idea of Kermit or Gollum pole dancing in a
Trixie and Precious,
and that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one.
The strip club named Charnel House. Yeah,
gross.
It really is. Man.
Sorry, I assume you have other questions for me, but I've just gone completely off.
I do. I have one other question, and then we're going to actually get to the chapter tonight. So,
by all means,
this kind of segues into it perfectly. If, and it is sort of a big if, maybe it's an eventual win, the Prancing Pony podcast were ever to have a presence on TikTok. Tell me what you think that would look like. I mean, what would the PPP, how would I fit in? What sort of niche? If you're the guy who's answering short questions with long answers, what does the PPP do on TikTok?
The thing that you could probably do on TikTok, since you've got close to 7 years of content, is post all of your funniest moments on TikTok. And then when you have the link in your bio that you're like, hey, I really like these people, why don't we start checking out more of them? Well, you can post a link to listen to the Prancing Pony podcast or the website or signing up for Entmoots or the email listings. So podcasts have a distinct advantage in that it's already other content. So like Twitch users will just record themselves on Twitch for 3 hours at a time. You take a 15 to 60 second clip, post it, and you can do the same thing on TikTok.
I'm now regretting that we didn't actually video record our episodes, that it's all just audio.
You don't even need to video record. You can just post the audio with the little wave.
Oh, yeah. The waveform things. We use something called Headliner for that right now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Or you could just post the most embarrassing headshot of Shawn and the sexiest photo of you side by side, so that it looks like, oh, who is this? I want to listen to them because they're talking about something fun. So
I like that. Well, Thank you so much, Don, for teaching this old dog new tricks. I'm looking forward to TikToking with you sometime in the new year.
Alan, it has been my absolute pleasure, and you're not that old.
Well, thank you, sir. Now, before we move in to the actual text, remind us one more time where people can find you and your content.
I am at Don Marshall 72 across every social media platform.
Well, that makes it easy to remember.
Yeah. I mean, nobody else was using the name, and it's been my name since, that's been my username since my Xbox 360 days.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm. Back when I was playing Halo way more than I am now because I didn't work full time. But we're not going to be playing Halo anytime soon. Alan, would you like to pick up right where we left off last week with everybody staring in amaze?
As they often do when you and I are doing the show. All right. And folks, for those of you who haven't quite paid attention, my voice is clearly not 100%. So forgive me, I may not be doing grand characterizations tonight, but I assure you that means the narration might be a little bit nicer. Sort of that deep, gravelly thing going. All right. And while Theoden went by slow paths in the hills, the Grey Company passed swiftly over the plain, and on the next day in the afternoon they came to Edoras, and there they halted only briefly ere they passed up the valley, and so came to Dunharrow as darkness fell. The Lady Éowyn greeted them and was glad of their coming, for no mightier men had she seen than the Dunedain and the fair sons of Elrond, but on Aragorn most of all her eyes rested. And when they sat at supper with her, they talked together, and she heard of all that had passed since Theoden rode away, concerning which only hasty tidings had yet reached her. And when she heard of the battle in Helm's Deep, and the great slaughter of their foes, and of the charge of Theoden and his knights, then her eyes shone. But at last she said, Lords, you are weary, and shall now go to your beds with such ease as can be contrived in haste. But tomorrow fairer housing shall be found for you. But Aragorn said, Nay, lady, be not troubled for us. If we may lie here tonight and break our fast tomorrow, it will be enough. For I ride on an errand most urgent, and with the first light of morning we must go. She smiled at him and said, Then it was kindly done, Lord, to ride so many miles out of your way, to bring tidings to Éowyn, and to speak with her in exile. Indeed, no man would count such a journey wasted, said Aragorn. And yet, lady, I could not have come hither, if it were not that the road which I must take leads me to Dunharrow. And she answered, as one that likes not what is said, Then, Lord, you are astray, for out of Herondale no road runs east or south, and you had best return as you came. Nay, lady, said he, I am not astray, for I walked in this land ere you were born to grace it. There is a road out of this valley, and that road I shall take. Tomorrow I shall ride by the paths of the dead. All right.
Dun, dun,
Ba,
dun.
ba, ba.
Every time there's the word paths of the dead are brought up in this book, I am constantly reminded just how terrifying it is to everyone, and just the putting myself in Éowyn's shoes. It's like, oh, the person I care very deeply about is going to go die.
Intentionally, like going to go walk into a place knowing full well it will kill them.
So we pick up right where we left off. This is early in the afternoon of March 6th. In fact, it's the chronology. It tells us that Aragorn, along with Legolas and Gimli, of course, and his kindred, ride to Edoras, leaving at about 1 p.m., and the camp is about 20 miles away. Yeah.
Now, the chronology also confirms what we read here in the text about their arrival at Edoras tomorrow. The entry in the chronology for March 7th reads, Aragorn reaches Edoras during day, and after brief halt, rides to Dunharrow, which he reaches at nightfall.
So it is now the evening of March 7th, as Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and the Grey Company have now arrived at Dunharrow.
And just to help place it, because if you're not looking at a map, you might not know, Dunharrow is in the mountains above Edoras. Now, remember, the mountain range is to the south of Edoras. So Dunharrow is further south, but in that same valley, heading up into the mountains, into the White Mountains.
And you said, if you're not looking at a map, I'm pleased to say that I actually was. So
Good.
When you said that, I glanced up. I'm like, yep, he's right. He's absolutely right.
It's hard for me because I grew up in an area where the mountains were always north. So I grew up in Southern California, and for me, the San Gabriel Mountains were the thing that defined north. So to me, mountains are always north. So trying to imagine a mountain range that is to the south is very difficult. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I know.
That's
it's weird.
so funny. But of course, before we can actually get to those mountains, we have to say a little hello to Lady Éowyn. Just doing a little quick dive into Dunharrow itself.
That's right. Well, first, as you might expect, especially here at the PPP, we're going to give you a little bit of word nerdery on Dunharrow.
Woohoo.
In the nomenclature published in Hammond and Skull's Reader's Companion, we read that Dunharrow is a modernization of actual Rohan. By actual Rohan, they mean actual Old English, Dunharja. Now that's D-U-N-H-R-G. And that means the heathen fane on the hillside, so called because this refuge of the Rohirrim at the head of Harrowdale was on the site of a sacred place of the old inhabitants, who of course are now the dead men. And Harrow is still in English place names, specifically indicating a heathen place of worship.
And then as well, in The War of the Ring, which is volume 8 of Histories of Middle-earth, we read that this place is the work of long-forgotten men. No song or legend remembered them, and their name was lost. For what purpose they had made this place a town or secret temple or a tomb of hidden kings, no one could say. Here they had dwelt under the shadow of the dark years, before ever ship came to the mouths of Anduin or Gondor of the kings was built. So it is been around basically since the Second Age at least.
Right. I mean, because they dwelt there under the shadow of the dark years before Númenor was sending its vessels here. So earlier in the Second Age, as a matter of fact. But now that we've gone and talked a little bit about Dunharrow, it's time to go ahead and catch up with Éowyn. After all, it's been a while since we've seen her. In fact, she's only appeared in one chapter in The Lord of the Rings so far until this chapter, and that was The King of the Golden Hall, which Shawn and I talked about way back in episodes 204 through 206, over a year and a half ago now in podcast time. So go back to those episodes for more on Éowyn.
Seriously, I need to do a Meanwhile in Middle-earth. What's Éowyn been up to at this point? Just, my goodness.
Leading her people to Dunharrow, I guess.
Seriously. And Éowyn, has been doing stuff. She's been left in charge of Meduseld when Theoden and Éomer, left for Helm's Deep. And in one of those really wonderful moments that I love, Theoden asks which of his men might stay to rule his people in his stead. And
I loved that. Yeah, because nobody answered, right? None of the lords wanted to stay. They all wanted to go and fight.
Yeah.
But Hama, and this is one of the other reasons I love Hama. He said the people trust in the house of Eorl. And that was confusing to Theoden. He's like, yeah, don't you understand what I just said? I can't spare Éomer. What are you talking about? And Hama's like, no. I said not Éomer, and he is not the last. There is Éowyn, daughter of Éomund, his sister. She is fearless and high-hearted. All love her. Let her be as lord to the Eorlingus while we are gone. And so it was that she was left in charge, which she'll be none too happy about later. But
no. And that is one of those moments that I love where Tolkien does a sort of subversion of the show don't tell trope.
Yes.
Because he's not necessarily showing you, because it's not Éowyn actually doing the action. It's a tell because it's Hama's literally telling Theoden, but showing in a way that this is another person talking about a character that we get the sense of very early on, right? She is graceful, she is wise, and the people will trust her when the king leaves. And I think that is just a huge deal.
Yeah,
huge
really
deal.
Is. Absolutely.
So back today though, on this morning in March, she greets the Grey Company, and though no mightier men had she seen, there are now 32 different versions of Aragorn. Despite all of those people there, she still only had eyes for Aragorn. She sits with him at dinner. I mean, how can you not? It's Viggo Mort. I mean, what? So Éowyn sits down with Aragorn for dinner. She gets caught up on all of the news of the events that have basically happened since they left.
Yeah. And then she visibly reacts. I love this, right? Her eyes shone when she hears about the battle, the slaughter, and the charge. I just, again, you get that image. You're reminded even ahead of time. She is a warrior woman, right? This is setting the stage for the conversation that's going to come later.
Yeah. She doesn't quail at the idea of the violence. And I think that's very deliberate from Tolkien.
Absolutely it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So she offers them rest for the night, and she says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll get you a better place, right? I mean, we didn't know you were coming. We didn't have the fancy VIP suites ready to go, but don't worry, stay in the tents tonight, and tomorrow we'll get you better quarters." And Aragorn's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. All we need is a place to sleep and breakfast in the morning. I mean, early morning, because we're out. We got to go."
Yeah, we got to go at first light. Sorry, very, very important errand that we're heading on. Sorry, I know you think it's probably useless, but Eowyn, we're just gonna pop on over there.
Besides, the last thing he wants to do is wait till lunch, because then she'll make that stew. Oh man, she's a warrior woman, not a cook.
No, thank you.
No, that folks, there's nothing about that in the books. We're just teasing Phil Mayo in there.
Oh, but Eowyn, of course, thinking that this is just a dead end,
right,
is touched that they came all this way to visit her and to bring her news.
That's right. Aragorn, I love this. He's ever so kind and ever so classy, compliments her while explaining, no, it's the way that I have to go led me here. But I love that whole thing about nobody would consider this a waste of time. Nobody would count such a journey wasted. Such a debonair, suave guy. Rico suave.
Oh, and of course, there's a hammer coming in a moment, of course.
Sadly, there is. Yeah, and Eowyn's already starting to get a little bit of a clue, right? She does not like where this conversation is going. Based on her reaction later, the fact that she really does seem surprised, I'm convinced she doesn't yet think that he's going to the paths of the dead, but that whole "as one that likes not what is said" strongly suggests she's got an inkling.
I've always read into it that, like, yeah, she's guessing, but she's desperately hoping that it's not the case. Like, please tell me I'm wrong. And then, of course, the shoe drops. Aragorn drops the hammer.
Yep.
I'm leaving. Surprise. And not without significant class, though. Aragorn is, "I walked in this land ere you were born to grace it."
Oh, I love that. Sadly, of course, I can say that to a large number of my listeners, but yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I'm leaving tomorrow on the paths of the dead.
Oh, he's leaving on that midnight train to the paths of the dead. Oh, that'd be fun. Oh, that's like twice that. Now I've sung.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep just suckering you right in.
Let's do it. I'm ready for it.
All right, well, when we come back from the break, folks, I'm going to make sure we get Don to sing again. Well, before we get back to the text and Eowyn's reaction to Aragorn's choice of road, she doesn't like his MapQuest directions. We want to make sure you know that even after you've listened to this episode, there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast.
I'm just now imagining, at the Dwimmerberg, turn right.
You have missed your exit. Turn around.
When possible, make a legal U-turn at Dunharrow, which I'm sure is what Eowyn wants Aragorn to do. Yeah. But we digress. Folks, the Prancing Pony podcast has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with some really great questions and discussions across all of our social media spaces. You can check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. Follow the page to get the news, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, you can find us on r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we are simply at PrancingPonyPod.
And please be sure to check out the Rings of Power Wrap-Up. That's my new podcast with Sarah Brown and James Tauber, where we discuss, analyze, and speculate all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
Alan, James, and Sarah take a deep dive into the lore behind the show, or the lore that should be in the show, or behind the show. Talk about all the themes and the characters, and interview folks involved in the show. So look for the Rings of Power Wrap-Up and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out Rings Wrap-Up on social media for more.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the book that Shawn and I are writing, and I have to say, Don, it is exciting to finally start to see it taking shape.
It's especially exciting because I didn't know you could read.
Oh, well played,
I got to
sir.
get my digs. I got to get my digs in there somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
you do.
I am actually really looking forward to this. No joke, because it is releasing next July. Why We Love Middle-earth looks like it will be a really great resource for not only myself, but the Tolkien fandom and some longtime Legendarium readers.
Longtime Legendarium readers.
Well,
Tactfully put,
well, I'm trying to be
put.
tasteful about it.
Yeah, very subtle. Folks, with the release of the Rings of Power, we know that a brand new group of viewers is going to want to learn more about the world of Middle-earth and the fandom. So Shawn and I are writing what we hope will be a guidebook for those diving into Middle-earth for the first time, but also for those veteran readers looking for more information on a specific aspect of Tolkien's works and the fandom. The book's going to be a collection of short chapters, each serving as an introduction to a different book, a different topic of study, maybe a different fan interest. And the idea is to draw readers deeper into Middle-earth as they read along with us.
Now, I have actually taken a look at the table of contents and the first chapter, and it does look like it is going to be a great read. You'll be talking about the books, obviously, but also the adaptations, right? The books about Tolkien, the art, the games, the online communities, the fan gatherings, the languages, your favorite Lord of the Rings related TikTok content creators, whoever they may
I'm sure,
be.
New better, do better, of course.
New is, I will say this with my whole chest. New knows way more about the Silmarillion than
he's a first age master. Are you kidding me?
He is. The man is a certified, like, I don't want to say genius because I like to reserve that word, but my God, he knows so much.
He does. And he's got it all right there at the just instant recall.
I still have trouble remembering all of the elves whose names start with the letter F. Meanwhile, he's talking about like the vampire that shows up for half a second in even you can see, I can't even do that. Oh my God. But yes, New Beta, phenomenal content creator.
I was just giving you grief because, of course, I don't know any other TikTok creators.
I will happily introduce you, Alan.
Okay. Well, I guess I know you, and you're a creator, right? You're on that TikTok thing?
Yeah, I might even promote that book on that TikTok thing if you really want me to.
You might. I appreciate that. But you're right, of course. The book is going to cover all of those things, and it's going to mirror the experience of listening to the podcast as much as we can possibly do in a book. There are going to be plenty of asides, digressions. We'll have individual commentary in each of our two, voices, and plenty of pop culture references and bad dad jokes. Pre-orders are available now, so check out our socials and especially our website for more information. Let's go and back into the story, though, for now. So, Don, would you pick up exactly where I left off?
Gladly. Then she stared at him as one that is stricken, and her face blanched, and for long she spoke no more, while all sat silent. "But Aragorn," she said at last, "is it then your errand to seek death? For that is all you will find on the road. They do not suffer the living to pass." "They may suffer me to pass," said Aragorn. "But at the least, I will adventure it. No other road will serve." "But this is madness," she said, "for here are men of renown and prowess, whom you should not take into the shadow, but should lead to war where men are needed. I beg you to remain and ride with my brother, for then all our hearts will be gladdened, and our hope be the brighter." "It is not madness, lady," he answered, "for I go on a path appointed. But those who follow me do so of their free will. And if they wish now to remain and ride with the Rohirrim, they may do so. But I shall take the paths of the dead, alone, if needs be." Then they said no more, and they ate in silence, but her eyes were ever upon Aragorn, and the others saw that she was in great torment of mind. At length they arose, and took their leave of the lady, and thanked her for her care, and went to their rest. But as Aragorn came to the booth where he was to lodge with Legolas and Gimli, and his companions had gone in, there came the Lady Eowyn after him, and called to him. He turned and saw her, as a glimmer in the night, for she was clad in white, but her eyes were on fire. "Aragorn," she said, "why will you go on this deadly road?" "Because I must," he said. "Only so can I see any hope of doing my part in the war against Sauron. I do not choose paths of peril, Eowyn. Were I to go where my heart dwells, far in the north, I would now be wandering in the fair valley of Rivendell." For a while she was silent, as if pondering what this might mean. Then suddenly she laid her hand on his arm. "You are a stern lord and resolute," she said, "and thus do men win renown." She paused. "Lord," she said, "if you must go, then let me ride in your following, for I am weary of skulking in the hills and wish to face peril and battle."
All right. Man.
Oof.
When Éowyn tells you she's ready to go with you and face these dangers, you know you're going to be in for a long conversation.
I think things are starting to get serious. I don't know.
Well, she did reach out and touch his arm.
That's true.
She's elevated things.
In olden times, that's basically a proposal of marriage.
Not quite, but just you wait. I've got something that's coming up here that I bet most of you don't know is a big turn and is a big confession. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm teasing the content, and we're going to be there soon enough. All right, so let's go back to the beginning of that passage. The news goes over just about as well as you might expect, right? I mean, she like it went over with Theoden and Éomer. It's just like eyes wide open. You're doing what, right? She just stares at him. She's unable to speak, and her face is just pale white.
And the reaction runs in the family because she goes to the same conclusion as Theoden and Éomer. That's like, this means certain death. And of course, we get the line, "The dead do not suffer," which in this case means allow the living to pass. So that question Gimli asked, totally valid.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Aragorn explains, well, in my case, you see, they might make an exception. I'm a rather important person. Yeah. Don't you know who I am? So, like he explains to her, he has to risk it, right? He has to adventure it. And here in this context, adventure means to take a chance, even if success is unlikely.
And there is no other way, though, to accomplish the goal of getting to the southern fiefdoms. And Éowyn expresses what is, we now know, a legitimate concern, right? It is madness to take these skilled warriors, these 30 different versions of you to certain death, what they should be doing, going off to war where they're really needed.
That's a valid point. I mean, okay, if you're going to gather 10,000 spears, 35 isn't going to make a huge difference. But it's going to make a difference when they're all as talented as Aragorn. I mean, these guys, we talked about this last episode. They're armed with bow, spear, and sword. They know how to fight at all ranges. They are martial men. Not Don Marshall, mind you.
No,
Marshall,
the other kind.
That's correct, the other kind. So she says, ride with Éomer, right? That's going to bring us joy and hope. And she's basically describing his plan as madness. And Aragorn says, this isn't madness.
This is Sparta. Oh, sorry, right. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
This is not madness. It is Sparta. And she kicks him right into the hall.
I need an alternate universe version of that. What's the Marvel thing? The What If series? It's like, you know what? You're not going to the paths of the dead. I'm going to just kick you down, tie you up, and make sure you can't go.
She's going to yeet him right out the...
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
The thing I'm slightly known for is coming back to haunt me.
Had to bring that in.
Oh, my God.
So, no, he explains, look, this isn't madness. He basically says this is fate, right? This path has been appointed for me. It's my duty to take it. And then he does separately say that it's not the duty of these men. They are following me freely, of their own free will. They're choosing to do this.
Yeah, they are. And they are free to change their mind and ride with Éomer if they want. And if they do, I'm still going alone.
Yeah. Alone if needs be. Mm-hmm. What a statement that is.
Powerful.
Yeah, really, really is. So as this is happening, the rest of the Grey Company are eating their meal, and they're eating quietly. They probably don't really want to
most awkward
Éowyn's wrath here.
Ever.
But they eventually leave to take their rest, and they, give her their thanks as they leave. And then, oh boy, this is when the conversation goes to the next level, right? Mm-hmm, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are heading to their tent. That's what booth means in this context here. And Éowyn ambushes her. Éowyn calls out to Aragorn after. Notice that she does this right after Legolas and Gimli have gone into the tent. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then she's like, hey, wait up. Oh boy. And she's described as having eyes on fire. I don't know. The first thing I think of course, is anger, but then you think, no, passion, and maybe a little frustration. And then you realize it's all of those.
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah, it really is. Very, very powerful moment.
Yeah, it's one of those descriptions of Eowyn, clad in all white, and now we're sort of led to believe like, okay, this is the confrontation. But now instead of asking if he is seeking death or saying this is madness, she's just very simply, why?
Yeah, it's a question she didn't ask before. Yeah.
No. And Aragorn, being who he is, doesn't really give any detail and says it's the only way that he can do his part in the war. It isn't what he wants to do, but it's what he has to do. If he did what he wanted, basically, it would be going to Rivendell. It would be with Arwen.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which, there's two subtle things going on here, aren't there? I mean, Aragorn is telling Eowyn that his love has already been given to somebody. He says, where my heart dwells. And he's also telling her with this whole idea that this isn't what I want to do. I don't choose this. This is something that I must do. He's reminding her that duty comes before desire. It's a hard truth. He doesn't like it any more than she likes it, but he accepts it and is willing to do this. He's modeling for her a behavior that he wants her to emulate, to do her duty, to put that duty above the desire.
Yeah, and it does kind of seem like it almost gets through to her as she's like thinking about the meaning sort of behind his words, right? She touches his arm, pays him a compliment, and then immediately asks, well, let me join you. And that's her rationale. Is basically, it's like, I'm tired of sitting around, waiting, hiding, and she wants skulking.
Great word, isn't it?
It's almost the Eowyn version of Gollum's and she's tired of it, and she just wants this combat, this danger.
Yeah. Well, like her eyes lit up before, right? When Aragorn was giving her the news of all the things that happened. When did she react? She reacted when she heard about the charge of Theoden and the riders out against, certain death at the end of the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
So for her, that's what she's living for. That's what she wants. Now, it's worth mentioning here that in one of the earlier drafts of the story, there is another conversation that takes place that sheds light on her request here to join him. And in this early draft, Theoden is at Dunharrow along with Éomer, Aragorn, and the rest, rather than arriving later, so they're all there. During a feast with all of them assembled, a messenger from Minas Tirith comes and asks for 10,000 spears to be sent at once. Theoden basically says that can't be done. Tolkien's notes tell us, Éowyn says that women must ride now, as they did in a like evil time in the days of Brego, son of Eorl, when the wild men of the East came from the inland sea into the East Emnet.
And the idea of women in Rohan fighting alongside the men, then, not an entirely alien or unacceptable idea.
Yeah.
And it's not that Aragorn has a problem with this notion at all. There's no qualms with her fighting.
That's important to note. I really do think, because I think that's the thing. We want to say, oh, come on, she just wants to fight. It's not like, oh, she's a woman and therefore she shouldn't be fighting. Aragorn's not saying that at all.
Not at all. And correct me if I'm wrong, that comes up in maybe not this episode, but in a moment. Éowyn says something like, you are a woman, like you're basically saying that I am a woman.
My place is in the home. And that actually is in this chapter, in this episode. Okay. Yeah, it's in the next section, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. It is really that Aragorn is saying that it is her duty that she accepted when Theoden charged her with, ruling over the people of Rohan in his absence.
That's absolutely right. This isn't about, oh, you can't be fighting as you're a woman. It's you can't go to the fight because your duty, your responsibility, the thing you accepted is to be here leading these people. Yeah.
Speaking of your duty is, Alan, would you like to read the next portion that may
because
or may
the very
not
first
start?
line is your duty is? Yeah, I will. All right.
See what I did there?
Your duty is with your people, he answered. Too often have I heard of duty, she cried. But am I not of the house of Eorl, a shield maiden and not a dry nurse? I have waited on faltering feet long enough. Since they falter no longer, it seems, may I not now spend my life as I will? Few may do that with honor, he answered. But as for you, lady, did you not accept the charge to govern the people until their lord's return? If you had not been chosen, then some marshal or captain would have been set in the same place, and he could not ride away from his charge, were he weary of it or no. Shall I always be chosen, she said bitterly. Shall I always be left behind when the riders depart, to mind the house while they win renown, and find food and beds when they return? The time may come soon, said he, when none will return. Then there will be need of valor without renown, for none shall remember the deeds that are done in the last defense of your homes. Yet the deeds will not be less valiant, because they are unpraised. And she answered, All your words are but to say, You are a woman, and your part is in the house. But when the men have died in battle and honor, you have leave to be burned in the house, for the men will need it no more. But I am of the house of J.R.R, and not a serving woman. I can ride and wield blade, and I do not fear either pain or death. What do you fear, lady? He asked. A cage, she said, to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire. And yet you counseled me not to adventure on the road that I had chosen, because it is perilous. So may one counsel another, she said. Yet I do not bid you flee from peril, but to ride to battle, where your sword may win renown and victory. I would not see a thing that is high and excellent cast away needlessly. Nor would I, he said. Therefore I say to you, lady, stay, for you have no errand to the south. Neither of those others who go with thee. They go only because they would not be parted from thee, because they love thee. Then she turned and vanished into the night. Oh, man.
Probably, maybe a hot take.
Yeah.
In my opinion, one of, if not the best, two-person conversations Tolkien has ever written. The back and forth between them is...
It's certainly in the primary part of the Legendarium. I mean, I might say that the Atherbeth would rank up there as well.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of the other great dialogue, a lot of the other great conversations are more than two. This one-on-one chat, this direct confrontation, and powerful arguments that she puts forth.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, and Tolkien excels at this, they're both right. Right?
Yeah.
They're both
right. That's the thing. They are both right. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's really tough.
And that's so hard to write in an argument, because when you're having a discussion back and forth, usually the writer will say, one of them is wrong. And now the argument kind of begins as Aragorn is basically turning down a request, reminding her of that duty. And Éowyn literally cries out that all she has heard about is duty far too often. And she is, you can tell just in the writing, she is passionately invested in this argument. And I don't think, though, it's only because she has feelings for Aragorn. I've never gotten that sense.
No, I don't think it's just that. In fact, I think that really plays a minor role in it. In terms of her desire. She's very clearly wanting a different role.
Yeah, I think the Peter Jackson movies kind of played that up a little bit more. And I understand.
Understandably
why,
from a cinematic standpoint. Right.
But like this goes so much beyond the I love you. This is I am fond of you, but let me do my thing, please.
Yeah, let me be who I was born to be.
Yeah.
So she asks rhetorically, am I not a woman capable of fighting? Am I not a shield maiden? Later on, she'll make the statement. Here it's a rhetorical question, and I want to make sure you catch the fact that she asks it first, and then later on she says, but I am this thing. She argues that she's not a dry nurse. Now, obviously, that's kind of an unusual phrase for us. Hammond and Skull say this is used here in the traditional sense of nurse, given that she has spent so much time caring for Theoden in his old age, which was prematurely brought on by Wormtongue.
And this is also backed up in the next step in her argument, since the faltering feet of Theoden are no longer faltering because he's better now. So can't she just kind of do what she wants to now?
It's a fair question. You talked about they're both right. Aragorn points out this very painful truth. Not many of us get to do what we want while still retaining honor. And then he brings it down to the very specific set of circumstances for her, that she accepted that charge of Theoden to rule over his people until he comes back. And to abandon that would be dishonorable. Yeah.
It's that age-old adage, our lives, are not our own.
Yeah.
And in kind of making, though, that comparison, saying that, let's say, if Éomer had been put in her place, he couldn't abandon that responsibility no matter how much he wanted to do it.
Right. It's his job. And it is a painfully accurate truth, but it certainly doesn't sway Éowyn. She is bitter about having been assigned this responsibility.
Yeah, the way that she sort of phrases it, shall I always be chosen, left behind to mind the house? And it's very clear that,
Ouch.
she is, that's a rough one.
It is.
Because it's very clear that Éowyn wants that same renown and honor that she sees both in Aragorn, but also, I would argue, in her uncle, in her brother, in all of the men of the Dunedain, the elves, all of these people.
Even her late cousin, Theodred.
In Theodred as well, absolutely.
And her uncle, who is now, gone from being this, wizened old man to, a hale, hardy warrior. Yeah.
Mm. I don't know, Alan, I don't know if we ever get more information, and correct me if I'm wrong. Do we ever get any references to Éowyn's father being any kind of renowned warrior in the trilogy at all, or references to any motivations being familial?
Yeah, he was, at one point, he was the marshal in charge of the East Marches. His name is Éomund, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was killed in 3rd Age 3002 pursuing a raid of orcs by a large force that was ambushed by the Immin Muil.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not brought up directly, but I'm sure Tolkien had that in mind as well when he's writing these sorts of things. What is the motivation behind all of these folks?
Yeah. And it was his death and then his wife's death, Theoden. She grew ill and died shortly after his death. And that's how their children ended up being raised by King Theoden.
All of this is to say she clearly wants that same renown that she sees.
Really does, which is understandable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Aragorn points out that the circumstances they're facing are so grim, no one might return. It's very possible that no one comes back.
Yeah.
And then what he says there is just so great. Renown isn't going to matter anymore. Forget about that. Mm-hmm. It is valor that is going to be what matters.
That's, oh God, I keep bringing this back to World War I.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for anyone that maybe finds this rather boring, but there are these books. There's a great book by John Lucy, who is one of the British Expeditionary Forces, who I keep talking about, remind me of the Grey Company.
Yeah.
But they basically talk about how all of these people who had these glorious ideals of war back in the Napoleonic days of the raising of the swords and the charging of the cavalry, that doesn't matter anymore because machine guns were introduced. It's not even a question of will I have renown? Will I be talked about in stories? None of that matters. What matters is what's in your heart and the valor that you are, going to be able to utilize to defend your land potentially to your death.
Yeah.
Because in a way, right, the line, there will be no one left to sing about your courage or your bravery, that line, it's so true for so many of the soldiers in World War I. Their renown, they didn't get any. They were one of millions that died in that war. And I think in a way, Aragorn doesn't want Éowyn to suffer that same fate.
You're absolutely right. I just think this is a masterful way for Aragorn to separate bravery and courage from prestige and fame, right? I mean, the two sometimes go hand in hand for warriors, of course, but they really are totally different. You can have one without the other. And I thought the way he points this out is really vivid. Now, with this next bit of the argument, I have to say I hesitate to even break down this argument because you and I are not women. We don't know. We cannot know the feeling of being held back, of being told that our place is in the house. But I do think we need to try to talk this through as well as two guys can. And women, please feel free to reach out to Barnum and let us know if we're missing anything here, okay?
She definitely hears what Aragorn is saying as basically putting her in her place. And that is, in this case, in the house.
Yeah. And look, I understand why she thinks that, but I don't think that's really a fair interpretation of what Aragorn has said to her. I think they're almost having two separate conversations. She's talking about her being left behind while others go off to war. He's talking about her role as leader of the people. They're not talking about the same thing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Definitely different.
It really is.
And it's because she states very clearly that what she asked rhetorically before, right? Yeah. She is of the house of Eorl. She can ride a horse. She can fight with a sword, and she does not fear that pain or death.
I love that.
It's a great line. It's a great line.
Speaking of the house of Eorl, right? The Old English word Eorl before it meant Earl, right, a local leader, before it meant Earl, it simply meant warrior. And so she's basically saying this is who she is, right? This is her nature. This is the history of her family. She is a fighter, and she wants to prove it.
Yeah, and she mentions her mention of not fearing either pain or death prompts Aragorn to basically ask what she does fear. And this most memorable of phrases, and I'm so glad that Peter Jackson used this and paraphrased it slightly to make it a little bit more modernized, but a cage. To be caged until it is not possible to do great deeds, and just
till old age accepts. I mean, it is rough. And I read that differently than the films did. I tend to think of that being almost a deflated moment for her. You know, I think she's no longer as like sort of angry and I fear a cage and here's why. It's more like I fear a cage.
Oh,
you know? Like this is punched through her wall a little bit, and she's now having to come face to face with this fear and the reality that cage may be what awaits her right now. But yeah, I think it is a tremendous moment, and it shows once again Tolkien's understanding of characters in a way that is just such a rich emotional context for really, really is.
There's also maybe something to be said as you record this in quite literally a very narrow sound booth. And
I am in quite the cage. It's true.
Till use and old age accept.
Whoa, now, hey, wait a minute.
I'm sorry. I had to get one in. It's been a while. It's been a few minutes.
Old age. Well played, sir. Well played. Aragorn, though, catches her on her own argument, right? You told me not to do what I'm doing because what I'm doing is dangerous.
Yeah, and she, though, does clarify there's a difference. I didn't tell you to run away from danger, but to go to war where you could finally be victorious. That is different than being told to, stay at home and wait.
Exactly.
And finally, she says she wouldn't want to see something so high and excellent is the word she uses, lost in a needless way. It's as if, though, as she views the paths of the dead, there's nothing good there. It is just death.
Right. And that's what she means when she says needlessly, right? I mean, there's no benefit to this. From her perspective, she doesn't see that there is any possibility of making the situation better. I mean, obviously, those of us who read the story, we already know if he doesn't do this, Gondor falls. But wow, she can't see that. Yeah. So he agrees about this. I don't want to see something high and excellent wasted needlessly. He agrees and he flips it back on her, right? She turned his argument back against him, and now he's turning this compliment back against her. She is high and excellent as well. Stay here. I don't want to see you lost unnecessarily. But now is when she drops a big, big statement, and it's bigger than most of you are going to think at first.
Yeah, by saying that the people who are following him are doing so because they love him, she is not merely inviting him to make that inference that she also loves him too before she does that mic drop. And again, in true dramatic fashion, walks away.
Vanished into the night. I love that. But you're right. This isn't just, they love you, so you should probably figure out that maybe I love you too. A couple of episodes ago, we looked at that message from Arwen to Aragorn. I send thee what I have made for thee. And we talked then about Tolkien's use of thee and thou. Now, you might remember we talked about how those are the intimate or familiar forms as opposed to the deferential you. We don't think that in modern English because thee and thou feel archaic, so it feels formal. That feels more deferential. You feels more familiar, but it really is flipped around. And other languages still have these distinctions, and they can be very important. If you use the intimate you when you should be using the deferential version of you, that's either erroneously presumptive or intentionally condescending. It's a bad situation.
It really is. And there's an example of the latter, basically, a couple of chapters ahead, a conversation between Gandalf and Denethor. Denethor uses thee and thou as he would to someone like an inferior or a servant. Right. Gandalf uses the deferential you.
Yeah. And we'll also see that with the mouth of Sauron uses thee and thou. Question there is whether maybe they only have that form in Black speech. I don't know. But the other thing is he could very well be using it as a condescension, sort of a tongue in sort of sarcastic way of saying it. But when it's appropriate, like in the message from Arwen to Aragorn, it is a reminder of the intimate or familiar nature of the relationship between them. So, and this is so important here, when Éowyn shifts dramatically from using the deferential you all throughout this entire conversation to the intimate thee, she is saying a lot simply by choosing to use that form of the word. She's not assuming an intimacy that isn't there. She is inviting that intimacy. I believe she is quite literally confessing her love for Aragorn simply in her choice of second person pronoun when she goes from you to thee.
Tolkien is a freaking genius.
Isn't he?
I just listening to you explain that makes it so much sadder too, doesn't it? You really feel for Éowyn in this moment.
Yeah, you really do. But you'll feel for her even more when tomorrow she continues to do this and Aragorn keeps using you.
And also keep in mind though, Alan, this is backed up by something that Tolkien wrote himself in a footnote on Appendix F, the On Translations one. Yeah. In one or two places, an attempt has been made to hint at these distinctions by the inconsistent use of thou. Since this pronoun is now unusual and archaic, it is employed mainly to represent the use of ceremonious language. But a change from you to thou or thee is sometimes meant to show, there being no other means of doing this, a significant change from the deferential or between men and women normal forms to the familiar.
Exactly. And that's the point. I mean, he's very much addressing this particular passage when he says that, right? The change from you to thou or thee, this is the only time that it happens like this, is meant to show a significant change from the deferential or normal form to the familiar. Now, if you'll recall, when Pippin was in Minas Tirith in the Shire, they only have the informal. So he was speaking with the very familiar you when he was speaking with Denethor. And that is what led to the rumors that he was a prince of the halflings, because when you use the familiar you could only be doing that if you're of a similar station to the person that you're talking to. So just another, the thee, thou, you thing. I just wanted to make sure we got that square. This is a big moment, and we will see it continue, like I said, in the face of some awkward rejection, really, in the next section, which you're going to read now.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. When the light of day was come into the sky, but the sun was not yet risen above the high ridges in the east, Aragorn made ready to depart. His company was all mounted, and he was about to leap into the saddle, when the Lady Éowyn came to bid them farewell. She was clad as a rider, and girt with a sword. In her hand she bore a cup, and she set it to her lips and drank a little, wishing them good speed. And then she gave the cup to Aragorn, and he drank, and said, Farewell, Lady of Rohan. I drink to the fortunes of your house, and of you, and of all your people. Say to your brother, beyond the shadows, we may meet again. Then it seemed to Gimli and Legolas, who were nearby, that she wept, and in one so stern and proud that seemed the more grievous. But she said, Aragorn, wilt thou go? I will, he said. Then wilt thou not let me ride with the company as I have asked? I will not, lady, he said, for that I could not grant without leave of the king and of your brother. And they will not return until tomorrow. But I count now every hour, indeed every minute. Farewell. Then she fell on her knees, saying, I beg thee. Nay, lady, he said, and taking her by the hand, he raised her, then kissed her hand, and sprang into the saddle, and rode away, and did not look back. And only those who knew him well and were near to him saw the pain that he bore.
Oh man,
God.
All the feels right here, man. All the feels. Brutal.
laying it on thick, Tolkien,
Seriously.
and then just dagger to the heart. The thing for me was that he didn't look back, and that was like you want to talk about duty.
Seriously.
You want to talk about duty. That's
100%. So we start this section first by observing that a new day has come, with Aragorn and company arriving at dusk on March 7th. We now know it's March 8th.
And just to catch you up very briefly, Frodo saw the moon set a little bit ago around 5 a.m. and will be leaving Henneth-a-Noon around the same time as Aragorn and the company head to the Paths of the Dead.
That's right. Now, during the night last night, Pippin saw the beacons, as well as encountering the errand riders of Gondor.
And as early as it is, Aragorn is already getting ready to leave. The company is all ready to go. Éowyn arrives again, but is not in the sort of glimmering white that she was wearing last night. She is dressed as a rider and has equipped herself with a sword.
This, my friends, is known as the assumptive close. I like the attitude, right? She's like, I'm just going to show up in my armor and my sword. I'm ready to go, man. I love it.
Love it. Oh my God.
She also brings a cup and drinks to their good speed, of course.
Aragorn taking the cup as well, wishing her, the farewell, the good fortune, all of that good stuff. He also reminds her, right, to remind Éomer that beyond the shadows, they may still meet. We've still got that bromance going on. That's friendship that is so, I love the camaraderie of Aragorn and Éomer in the books. It is so well written.
It really is. And it's sort of ironic because when Shawn and I first started the podcast and we chose our nicknames, the Lord of the Mark and the Man of the West, it was just more out of practicality. He was, because Marchese literally means Lord of the Mark. So like, well, if you're literally the Lord of the Mark, who am I going to be? Well, I live really far to the West, so I'll just be the Man of the West. But that's exactly what we became. We became this brotherhood. And I do love the friendship between Éomer and Aragorn here. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I also noticed, by the way, I drink to the fortunes of your house and of you and of all your people, say to your brother, because that's going to come into play again in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this scene. I am getting some seriously strong Norse vibes here. Earlier, we saw Éowyn talk about being a shield maiden, and that really echoes Brynhild, the Valkyrie that serves Odin in the saga of the Volsungs. Now, her description of herself sounds a lot like Éowyn. She says in the saga, I am a shield maiden. I wear a helmet and ride with the warrior kings. I must support them, and I am not averse to fighting. Does that not sound like exactly what Éowyn said earlier about, I don't fear pain or death. I want to fight. I mean, it's exactly
pretty much exactly that.
Yeah. And then Éowyn bringing this drink here in this sort of formal setting ties her even further to that image, because one of the jobs of the Valkyries in the Eddas is to welcome dead heroes to Valhalla with a drink, horns of mead in that case. And here's Éowyn in a ritual cup-bearing scene dressed as a warrior wanting to fight. And I just thought that was worth talking about.
It's a really amazing comparison, and I don't know if any literary scholars in the time picked up on it, but at the time, if you're reading that, about Norse mythology, you're thinking, oh, Aragorn's dead because Éowyn is now in Eddas. Yeah, she's the Valkyries in Eddas, and just, hi, welcome dead heroes. Here's your cup. Have fun. But
party on, man.
Quite literally ushering them to the land of the dead. In this case, it's the paths of the dead, of the dead.
Absolutely.
We also, though, in this moment, coming out of the Norse thing, we get a glimpse of Gimli and Legolas's perspective from this, which we haven't seen in a while for this. And they think that she is weeping. And now, instead of, what we might expect, an argument, we get a plea from Éowyn, starting with the question, will you go? The answer is yes. Will you not let me go with you? And of course, the answer is no. And she literally, and this was when I first read this in the book. This is, I think, the point that shocked me the most, because I didn't see it in the movie. And it is it's not necessarily out of character with her, but it is so unexpected in that moment for me.
Especially now, because she's dressed as a rider with armor and a sword, and she's ready to fight. And for what she does now, oh, man.
She falls to her knees, begging him to allow.
The utmost humility.
It really,
this is heartbreaking to watch her do
this.
It is.
Oh, it is.
slightly awkward. I mean, I feel so badly.
I can't imagine what the other 34 people are, watching this like, oh,
Cringe.
do they need a moment? Should we just
Do we
everybody
need to
look
walk
that
away?
way?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to check my phone. Yeah. But, this is when we go back to what we talked about at the very end of the last section of the reading. She is now in full-blown familiar intimate mode here with Aragorn. Yep. Wilt thou go? Wilt thou not? I beg thee. Totally different from how she was speaking to him yesterday.
Aragorn, though, ever the linguistic savant, if you will, keeping her at arm's length, not engaging with her on that sort of level of familiarity we've just talked about.
Yeah. I do want to give a spoiler, though. This is really cool because those of us who are like, oh, man, come on, Aragorn, just give her a little thee, He does eventually at one point. It is after she is engaged to Faramir, when he now knows that it's safe to give her that level of intimacy without implying a romantic relationship. She asks him to wish her joy. Do you remember what he says? He says, I have wished thee joy ever since I first saw thee. It heals my heart to see thee now in bliss. Oh, my heart just sings when I read that, because now, he doesn't have this problem of being inappropriately familiar with her, right? Because she's engaged. He knows he's married.
Yeah.
And it's just such a wonderfully tender, platonic friendship, love moment. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. You see these two people who, wrong place, wrong time, wrong end of the world apocalypse thing. The circumstances, Yeah. I think it was even Viggo Mortensen in one of the behind the scenes videos that I watched so many times. In another world, he says, they're probably better off for each other, if you're being totally honest.
Well, and in the first draft, they were. There was no Arwen, and Aragorn marries Éowyn in the first draft. So
yeah, Gondor and Rohan reunited by marriage and falling under, arguably, there's something to be said about like the sort of Game of Thrones style arranged marriages that might strengthen.
Certainly a political arrangement, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Rhune's not messing with both Gondor and Rohan in that moment. Now, of course, you get a little bit of that because of Faramir being there.
Well,
right. It's maybe less. Yeah. Poetically prominent. But of course, the final time, apocalypse moments aside, he does a final time deny her. And he takes, I love this moment, he takes her hand, lifts her up, kisses her hand, gets on his horse, and leaves without a word and without looking back. And oh man,
I can hardly take it. Yeah,
it is. And we're reacting to it like this. It is very clearly not without pain. Tolkien says only those who knew him well and were near to him saw that pain. So I'm assuming here, but Legolas, Gimli, probably Halbarad.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of Eladon and Elro here, who are like,
depending on where they were in the group.
Yeah. Very keenly aware of Arwen's, existence, because Éowyn has very little idea of like who Arwen is, or, there's no reason for any jealousy in that moment, because it is I don't want to say a dereliction of duty that she's trying to get out of, but that's kind of,
she certainly wants her duty to be changed.
Yeah, she does. And she asks
just wishes it were otherwise. Yeah. Man, as hard as this has been on Éowyn, and it has been hard on her, and we're certainly right to have sympathy and pity and kind of identify with her sorrow. It's also had to have been hard for Aragorn, right? I mean, he valued Éowyn. He appreciated who she is. He would have loved to have her bravery alongside him. I'm sure it would have undoubtedly, she would have been a boon to them. And he could certainly see just how passionately she desired to do this, but he could not grant it, right? It would not only undo the responsibility that she has, it just simply isn't in his power to grant this request. Right. It would have to be up to Theoden and Éomer. And I can't wait for them to stick around. I got to go.
Yeah. And Éowyn, of course, stands like a statue, basically watching them as they go, as they head to the shadow of the Dwemerberg. And we've seen the word, though, Dwemer before. Saruman was called Dwemer Crafty. And we'll see it again in the Dwemer-like.
That's right. Now, Dwemer comes from similar Middle English and Old English words that mean illusion or phantom. And of course, Berg is mountain. So mountain of phantoms or haunted mountain.
And as she turns, Éowyn stumbles back. No one sees her. They all hid basically out of fear and would not come out until the sun was fully up and Aragorn and his company were just gone. They called them elvish whites. And definitely reminds me that, you know, the Rohirrim, for all of their nobility, they are still peoples of Middle Earth. They are superstitious in their nature of theirs. And, you know, it was kind of evident as far back as Aragorn's meeting with Éomer, way back in book 3. So how many months, if not years, was that for you and Shawn?
Let's see. That's 2+. So, yeah, I mean, we're in book 5 now, so 2 years.
Wow.
I know. It feels like just yesterday.
Well, we are inching our way closer. Would you care to read the final passage for this episode?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The light was still gray as they rode, for the sun had not yet climbed over the black ridges of the haunted mountain before them. A dread fell on them, even as they passed between the lines of ancient stones, and so came to the dim hold. There, under the gloom of black trees that not even Legolas could long endure, they found a hollow place opening at the mountain's root, and right in their path stood a single mighty stone, like a finger of doom. "My blood runs chill," said Gimli. But the others were silent, and his voice fell dead on the dank fir needles at his feet. The horses would not pass the threatening stone until the riders dismounted and led them about. And so they came at last deep into the glen. And there stood a sheer wall of rock, and in the wall the dark door gaped before them like the mouth of night. Signs and figures were carved above its wide arch, too dim to read, and fear flowed from it like a gray vapor. The company halted, and there was not a heart among them that did not quail, unless it were the heart of Legolas of the Elves, for whom the ghosts of men have no terror. "This is an evil door," said Halbarad, "and my death lies beyond it. I will dare to pass it nonetheless, but no horse will enter. But we must go in, and therefore the horses must go too," said Aragorn. "For if ever we come through this darkness, many leagues lie beyond, and every hour that is lost there will bring the triumph of Sauron nearer. Follow me." Then Aragorn led the way, and such was the strength of his will in that hour that all the Dunedain and their horses followed him. And indeed, the love that the horses of the rangers bore for their riders was so great that they were willing to face even the terror of the door if their masters' hearts were steady as they walked beside them. But Arod, the horse of Rohan, refused the way, and he stood sweating and trembling in a fear that was grievous to see. Then Legolas laid his hands on his eyes and sang some words that went soft in the gloom until he suffered himself to be led, and Legolas passed in. And there stood Gimli the dwarf, left all alone. His knees shook, and he was wroth with himself. "Here is a thing unheard of," he said. "An elf will go underground, and a dwarf dare not." With that he plunged in, but it seemed to him that he dragged his feet like lead over the threshold, and at once a blindness came upon him, even upon Gimli, Glóin's son, who had walked unafraid in many deep places of the world. Oh boy. Oh,
the dwarf
boy.
Is scared. The dwarf is scared. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Seriously.
Oh my God.
Not afraid of evil curses, says you. Properly warned ye be, says I.
Oh my God. Terrifying. Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. They get terrifying before we even get there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. It's that what's the horror movie sort of trope. You just kind of like, you let the camera stay and you just follow the person, and you can kind of see things slowly getting creepier and creepier and creepier as they go on. It's like, all right, okay, I see what's happening here. Feeling that dread as they move in. Ugh, terrifying.
Yeah. So yeah, they go through those lines of ancient stones, and I think there's some things to talk about there. We'll probably maybe cover that in the P5. So if you want to learn more about that, tune into that. But they come to the Dimholt then, and we're going to go to the nomenclature again to learn more about Dimholt. Yeah, always. So Tolkien writes, "Wood of dark trees at the entrance to the dark door. The name is given in the form of the language of Rohan, and so should be retained unchanged, though dim is still current in English, but here used in an older sense, obscure, secret, and holt is in occasional poetic use." Now that's Tolkien's words, and I'm just going to add that when he says holt is in occasional poetic use, holt is Old English for woods or forest or thicket. So that's what we're talking about here.
Is there an Old English version of obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy, and does it start with dim?
Yeah.
Amazing. I'll have to figure that out.
Dim Lord of the Rings guy. That's a simple card.
Dim now means something very,
very different.
You know, I'll take it. And this is, I mean, I cannot stress enough, because Peter Jackson did a sort of a brighter version as they're sort of walking through the stones. Mm-hmm. This is a dark place. Like even Legolas is struggling with his elf eyes.
Yeah.
With this gloom. And they find,
so gloomy. Yeah.
It really is. And they find a hollow at the root of the mountain, and right between them and the opening is a single stone like a finger of doom. I often interpreted that as like Sword of Damocles kind of interpretation. Ooh. Just a literal finger of, this is it. This is nature literally rising to, the quest hangs upon the edge of a knife. This is the moment when you decide, are you going? Like, are you doing this?
Yeah, man. And that finger of doom, that single stone, kind of makes me think of the Barrows, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It has that same really creepy feeling. Yeah. Oh, so all the others are quiet while Gimli manages to say that his blood runs chill. But then that creepy feeling when the sound just dies, feet away. It hits the ground and it just goes nowhere. Like the very air is oppressive and won't allow the speech to go any further.
Yeah, Gimli wants nothing to do with this. And then the horses, of course, want absolutely nothing to do with this. Very similar to the horses that the hobbits use with the Barrow Downs that you just mentioned. Yeah. But of course, they will let the rangers lead and dismount them. And that's when they come to the narrow valley and the wall of rock and what is known as the Dark Door.
Oh, the Dark Door. We really should pause at the description of this place, right? We don't often think of Tolkien as a horror writer, but this is a deeply terrifying setting, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think that is sort of where we see Peter Jackson shine the most, because that's what he was before
exactly,
he was a horror. Right. Yeah. And it to have, you got to wonder about, what these signs and figures are that we can't read and what language it could potentially be written in.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. I mean, presumably some sort of, pre-Númenorian language of these dead men.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah. So we're told that among this brave group of 35 experienced fighters, not a heart among them did not quail, except maybe Legolas, right? So Legolas's heart might be quailing as well. There's a possibility that he's the one. Mm-hmm. But I think we're trying to read here, of course, that, he's not quailing. And we get a reminder again that we're dealing with ghosts. That's why it doesn't affect him. And we talked about that in the mailbag last week.
Yeah. And interestingly, Eladon and Elro here, not mentioned here as being invulnerable to the fear.
Interesting.
Perhaps their half-elven nature that makes them kind of fearful as ghosts, as regular men.
I think that's possible. I mean, certainly they are only one generation removed. That is an interesting empty space there that they don't say, Legolas and the Sons of Elrond. Just as Legolas.
Yeah, Tolkien does not fill in the gaps there, and it's a wonder. And I always feel as though everything Tolkien wrote was very much intentional, however much he may have, changed things later on. Yeah. The things that made it in, oh yes, of course, I forgot to, put those two in, old chap. But no, this feels like, Legolas, full elf, good with nature, doesn't care about dead men, but
yeah. But Elladan and her hairdo. Halbarad, of course, is terrified, and he has another moment of foresight. Maybe that's something common to the Rangers or to the Dunedain. He knows that this is the way that's going to lead to his death. He's right. He dies in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
He's willing to go anyway, though. He's willing to go, and he says the horses won't go in. Aragorn knows. Right. It's like no. There. It almost felt to me though, and Alan, I don't have kids, and you do, but it definitely felt like Aragorn was like no, you're going to your grandmother's. There is no compromise here. Aragorn knows they have to go. The whole point of this, path, it is speed. We cannot cover this distance if we are not on horses.
Yeah, we can't let the horses go. That's not an option. Mm-mm. So he leads the way. And once again, we see, and not for the last time, that his will is so strong that the Rangers and the horses follow him. I love it.
Small difference, though, that we do very quickly see. Horses of the Rangers and Arad, a horse of Rohan, cannot do it. Legolas has to basically put his hands on him and sing until he can lead Arad in.
That's right. And that's when we switch to Gimli's perspective. And folks, get used to this, because it's his eyes that we are going to see through next week as we journey through the paths of the dead. There are no hobbits with us. So if Tolkien's going to stick with that epistemic regime, always showing us the story through the eyes of the least knowledgeable character, Gimli's the one.
Yeah, and I love that Tolkien does this, but there is a part of me that very much wants to know Aragorn's inner monologue when all of this happens. Yes. I can't imagine. He's thinking of Arwen and thinking of his father and his mother in his early 20s heading off and being called Estelle. Like, I so desperately, that was why I so much wanted, when there were rumors of an Aragorn origin story. I wanted there to be, the TV show or the 6-part miniseries. I very much wanted to have something like that, because it's such a rich story. But, despite his vast experience underground, Gimli is the one, by his very nature as a dwarf in Tolkien's universe, he is good underground, but he barely forces himself inside the door, and immediately suffering a blindness when he does.
We've seen a few other instances of blindness before. I'm thinking of Frodo on the Emyn Muil when the Nazgul flies over. I'm thinking of blindness that strikes. Actually, the Nazgul have this ability, it seems, to cause blindness when they fly over. And it's the same sort of magical blindness that it just emanates from pure evil. I don't think it's an accident that the only other entity that can cause blindness as a side effect is the Nazgul. And so we see it here.
Yeah, this is one of those moments I think Tolkien is very intentional with his language.
Yeah,
where
I think so
we
too.
See the same thing, happening not once, not twice, but a few times over the course of the trilogy. And the same thing happens, and there's a great evil, and there's a commotion, and all of a sudden it's like, we're in trouble. Yeah. We are in trouble. Yeah.
And they sure are. Well, it seemed to us, by the way, that Gimli wasn't the only one dragging his feet. Bartleman dragged his feet like lead over the threshold, probably because the mailbag weighs too much. What does Bartleman have in the bag for us tonight, Tom?
Oh, absolutely. Jake N. from Essex in the UK asks a fun one for us. Which depiction of the Legendarium character is your favorite in any of the adaptations?
Oh my.
At the moment, I don't think anyone can beat Owain Arthur's Durin the Fourth, but that might be because it is freshest in my mind, and his is a character for whom I had no preconceptions. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Alan?
Okay. That is a fun question. My goodness. All right, look, I can't fault Jake's choice of Owain Arthur. Not only has he done a great job as an actor, I think part of it is that his character has been written pretty well too. And that helps a lot. I mean, you could talk about Gil-galad's acting all night long. The problem is you've made him a character who's not all that likable. So yeah, Owain Arthur, that's fair. And truth is, if I were limiting my choice to the Rings of Power depictions, I might very well land on that same choice, though. I don't know. Ismael Cruz Cordova's Arondir and Lloyd Owen's Elendil would both have a really strong case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those would be the top ones, I'd say. But the show is only 20% of the way through its arc. So I think I'm going to have to go with somebody from a different adaptation. For me, it's the one characterization that not only fit the way I imagined the character when I first read the books, but it's also the one characterization that I cannot imagine anymore any other way. And I'm not complaining about that. And that's going to be Sir Ian McKellen's Gandalf. Don, what about you?
You hit so many good points. Ian McKellen is perfect. And in a way, it's so hard to pick just one because
Isn't it? I know, I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, I could pick one from each.
It was for Rings of Power, I will say we've both had the pleasure of meeting many of the actors, and I think they all do a phenomenal job with what they were given. Honestly, I have to go with Sophia, who plays Disa.
Yeah, she'd be right up there.
Every scene.
She steals every scene she's in.
She steals it. And look, hats off to Robert Aramayo and Owain Arthur for having that dynamic between the three of them. I love every scene those three are in. But my goodness, if Sophia doesn't just run circles around every line that she's saying, every scene that she's in, just her presence on screen is palpable.
I won't complain about that choice.
No, she's wonderful. As far as the movie goes, oh God. So look, we've had a number of people that could have been, right? The rumors that Nicolas Cage.
Oh gosh.
Or the unfortunate debacle with Stuart Townsend.
Yeah.
I got to give it to Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, as he's not the Aragorn from the books because Peter Jackson didn't write him that way.
Right.
But if you're going to write a character and have someone embody that character, I can't.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And the only reason I didn't choose him was specifically because it's not just who is the best at acting, it's which depiction is your favorite. And because I really struggle with the sort of meek, doubtful, sort of emo Aragorn, I couldn't pick him, even though I think Viggo does a breathtakingly good job. I mean, astonishing, easily the par of Sir Ian McKellen, frankly, in my book. It's just that the way they wrote Gandalf works for me. And so when you combine that with McKellen,
Gandalf is much closer to his book counterpart, I think, than Aragorn is. And, I'm a little bit younger, so I started with the movies.
Thanks for reminding me of that again.
Well, I have to every so often.
What, do you got a timer over there? Oh, 10 minutes have gone by. Got to make an old joke again.
It's a 15-minute timer, actually. But one of the things that I learned very recently, that Viggo Mortensen is now the same age as Ian McKellen was when he started playing Gandalf back then.
Wow.
Ian McKellen, I believe, was 61. And
Viggo is 61?
Viggo Mortensen is currently, a quick Google search, 64.
Viggo Mortensen is 64 years old.
Born October 20th, 1958.
Wow, he's 10 years older than I am. That is stunning.
Here's what I want, right? I want Peter Jackson to say, you know what? Let's hop on this sequel train. Let's produce something. Please. Give me an old Aragorn, a quick 15-minute Gondor.
Do the arrival of Aragorn at the bridge over the Brandywine when he gives the Star of the Dunedain to Sam. Oh my goodness. That would be awesome. The King's Letter.
Better yet, now that you've got Sean Astin on set, skip ahead. Let's do the Aragorn scene. Let's also do the scene where Sam takes the boat to the Undying Lands and reunites.
Or the scene where Gimli and Legolas take the boat. Oh, the tears! All the tears will be happening.
I would sob uncontrollably for months. All right, sorry. Tears aside, Alan, do we have time for one more?
Arguably we don't, but we're going to go ahead and try to do it anyway. Jerry S. in Washington asks, was it Spibimi that the professor did not publish the Silmarillion along with the Lord of the Rings as he had wished? Did the fact that the overlords of the publishing industry deny Tolkien the chance to share what he considered his more important work actually work out for the best? Another way to ask that question is, would his works that are considered canonical be so beloved by the fandom if he didn't have the rest of his life to work out the kinks and create more depth in his world? Now, Jerry gives us his own answer by saying, it is the completeness and the complexity and the continuity in his 3 published works that give those of us who love them that feeling of awe and wonder that bring us back to them again and again. And so, Jerry says, I tend to believe those feelings would not be as great as they are if those last years had not been granted to Tolkien to flesh it out even more. Don, what do you think?
100% agree. I think I'm going to try and use an analogy I haven't before, but that popped into my mind as soon as you said this. I think that the fact that the Silmarillion is as rich and deep as it is, you can tell if you go into the Lord of the Rings trilogy, knowing that there is so much story beyond the trilogy, it's kind of like looking at like water on a glacier, but not knowing how deep the water is. So if you step into it, it might be 6 inches deep. It might be 6 feet deep. You don't know. And in that same way, you can't really look at the Lord of the Rings on its own anymore, right? Because it is so intrinsically linked to The Hobbit, to the Silmarillion, to Unfinished Tales. Now, there are plenty of people that don't go beyond the trilogy or have only watched the movies, and that's fine. But I think for folks like myself who have sort of taken that dive into the deeper lore as we have, I don't know if the Lord of the Rings would be as beloved today if he had gotten to publish the Silmarillion first or even in his lifetime.
Well, remember, he actually wanted to publish them together in a single volume.
Yeah.
You would need a small truck to carry that thing around.
No chance. No chance.
Fellowship was published in July of 1954, Two Towers, November that same year. Return of the King, it took a year later, so that was November 55. So assuming that it took until the release of Return of the King to have published it all together. So let's say he published the Silmarillion, or what he had of the Silmarillion, plus the entire Lord of the Rings book in 1955. He ended up having another 18 years of his own life to work on it. But I also think we have to remember Christopher worked on it again for another 4 years after that before the Silmarillion was published in 1977. So yeah, there's no doubt that extra time in the oven, so to speak, really, really helped. And, Christopher talks about this himself in not only the prefatory material in the Silmarillion, but also in volumes of the History of Middle-earth, where he also recognizes that maybe he made a couple of decisions relating to, like, I don't know, who was it? The parentage of Gil-galad, I think it was. There are a few things that Christopher would have done differently, but there's not very many of those things, to be fair. And the thing is, Tolkien was working on this constantly afterwards, like Jerry intimates in his question, and like you talk about. If you look in the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, you will see countless letters after 1955 talking about working on the Silmarillion. If you look at 238, letter 238, which he wrote in 1962, he talks about returning to my major work, the Silmarillion. Or letter 276, which is a really cool letter. He writes this one to Dick Plotz, who founded the Tolkien Society of America. Now, they have merged since with the Mythopoeic Society. And he says in 1965 that the Silmarillion is in a confused state owing to alteration and enlargement at different dates. It presents in a more acute form than even the difficulties that I found in Lord of the Rings, the need to acquaint an audience with an unknown mythology without reference to the tales. Then get this, Tolkien says, I think I shall issue it in parts. The first part may reach the press next year. This was 1965. He wanted this out there. Even in 1972, he's a year away. He doesn't know it, of course. He's a year away from his death. Letter 335, he writes, every extra task, however small, diminishes my chance of ever publishing the Silmarillion. It's heartbreaking.
It is.
He didn't get to see that happen in his lifetime. But for us, the fact that he spent the rest of his life working on it, and then the fact that Christopher got another 4 years, gave us what I think really is the capstone to the Legendarium.
It almost reminds me, and I realize what I'm about to say may be slightly controversial if you're not a James Cameron fan, but I recently learned that James Cameron, who director of many great movies, but none withstanding also Avatar, the Blue People movie, not the Nickelodeon cartoon from the early 2000s. Avatar was written years and years and years ago, probably at this point 20 or so years ago, in late 90s or early 2000s, I think.
Right.
And he says in the interview something, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, I knew what I wanted to do, but the technology wasn't there, so he put it in a drawer for later.
Yeah.
And then came back to it. And it went on to be, at the time, one of the highest grossing, and then the highest grossing film of all time with, I believe, was it the first one to earn over $1 billion? I think
believe
that was
so. Internationally, yeah.
Yeah. And it just kind of strikes me as like, obviously James Cameron is around to see his success, but I don't necessarily know if the world or Tolkien was ready to publish the Silmarillion. I mean, think about how many different there's 4 different origin stories for Galadriel and Celeborn meeting. There's 2 different names for each of the blue wizards. There's 3 or 4 different ways that he changes his mind on pretty much.
We just talked about the 2 different origin stories for the LSR.
Yeah. So, even so, that is, it's just one of those things that you kind of look back and say, it wasn't ready then. And to be totally fair, there's a very good chance that it wasn't ready when Christopher published it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and Christopher acknowledges that in the history of Middle Earth. I mean, it was close, but it was still not ready. Yeah.
Sure. And, you know, there's something to be said about crafting an entire book out of just some notes, and albeit it's a lot of notes, but to craft a cohesive story from something like that, it's tough.
It's mind-blowing. The fact that Christopher is able to do that is still, to this day, one of the most amazing tasks. Like, I can hardly take my own notes and turn it into anything, comprehensible.
Oh, no.
It's pretty amazing.
Oh, well. Hey, we'll take it.
We will. But folks, that is all we have time for this week, and it wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But be sure to join us next week when Grim Grinning Ghosts come out to socialize.
We're going to have a singing musical episode one day, I swear.
I'm sure we
folks,
will.
Alan and I do want to thank the members of Team Prancing Pony Podcast, editor Jordan Reynolds, Barleyman Becca Davis, and our team of research assistants, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
Speaking of the website, please visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, first and foremost, a podcast about the books. So if you are interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link to it in our library. The PPP gets a small amount of compensation when you make that purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And then we also want to thank our patrons at the Kier Dance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Mario in Utah, B in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, and Joe in Washington.
There's also Erwin from the Netherlands, Dylan in Australia, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Jim in Maryland, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, June in Ireland, Joshua in Massachusetts, James in Florida, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Keith in Alabama, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, and James in Massachusetts. Thank you all so much for the support.
Indeed, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your care packages for the broken-hearted Eowyn to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Now, if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barliman, even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately. There is still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get through just as much as we're able to, as soon as we're able to.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
I have been Don Marshall, your neighborhood speed rapper, and this is Alan Sisto, my disappointed father.